Welcome back to the Don't Worry Nobody's Listening podcast, your favorite new podcast where I talk about sports, politics, and pop culture from the perspective of a middle-aged man. As I teased on the Facebook page for the podcast earlier this week, I'm going to throw in a special midweek episode that kind of plays off of the weekend episode we released this weekend. So did NBA mock draft for the draft that's coming up tomorrow. I'm the GM of the team. Here's the guy I would pick, all 30 picks with my reasons. If you want to check that out, you can download it, stream it. You can always find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Castbox, Satchel, Peapod, Spotify, YouTube. People are finding us everywhere. But please subscribe, rate, review. When you subscribe and rate and review, it makes it easier for new people to find us and get more recognition, more people to listen. Hopefully then you can start tweeting at me, things like that. Like I said, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube at JASONBANICKI. This special midweek episode, it's just going to be me as your solo host. So this will be a solo episode, like I said. I'm going to take and extend what I did over the weekend with Todd. And this one's going to be a mock draft with trades that are kind of a combination of rumors that have been heard and just pure fantasy of things that I would like. So that's just going to be it. This isn't going to be a full hour. This will probably be, this will be a little bit shorter episode. But I'd just like to thank everybody for listening to the last episode. It's still got some really great momentum going, getting really good views on YouTube for the episode, getting a lot of downloads. So I appreciate that. But as always, I ask, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your worst enemies. I don't care. Let everybody know about this show. That way, hopefully, I can get even more new sponsors like our sponsor for this week's episode. This one is brought to you by Ice Cold Delicious Bud Light Lime. When it's 95 degrees out with 90% humidity in the summer, what's going to taste better and quench your thirst and let you know it's not so hot than an ice cold Bud Light Lime? Not a real advertisement, but I'm going to have me a drink of Bud Light Lime, which I can do. It's the one advantage to not working. So I'm not going to dally too long here, and I'm going to get right into it. So at the first pick, I keep the Phoenix Suns staying at number one and taking DeAndre Ayton, just like I did in my original mock draft. The Suns stick with their 100-year rebuild plan in this mock draft and still refuse to even think about trading the number one pick for an established player or players. They just stay the course and take another big guy to go with all their other big guys they've drafted. And again, that's why they're the Phoenix Suns. So, like I said, this is going to take too terribly long. Some of the fun stuff's coming up, though. But number two, here's where I'm going to have my first trade. So at number two, I'm going to have the San Antonio Spurs taking Luka Doncic. So I'm going to have, obviously, there's a trade here between the Kings and the Spurs. I think anybody who's paid any attention has listened to the fact that Kawhi Leonard basically boycotted last season, sat out on his team, sat out the playoffs even after he was healthy, and now is basically saying, I don't want to play in San Antonio. My uncle is telling me I can get more money on a sneaker contract if I play in a bigger market. Kawhi, it's your personality. You're not a very public guy. Even now, you're not being very public. This is why you're not getting paid, like I said before, what Russell Westbrook is getting in Oklahoma City. It's not the size of the market anymore. The NBA is seen worldwide. So the city you play in isn't holding you back. But the Spurs made a grandfather offer that they just can't say no to and move on from you and your uncle and your drama that surrounds you and that is probably going to continue to follow you no matter where you go. And maybe one of these days you'll actually play 82 games. We'll see. I'm going to throw a little shade Kawhi Leonard, even though I actually like him as a player. But this last season just really turned me off. So one thing I will say is for all the trades that I've made, either they're just straight up pick swaps or anything that involves players, I ran through the ESPN trade machine and was accepted by the trade machine, was approved by the trade machine, which means they are salary cap compliant. I couldn't just throw the rules of the salary cap out. So what I did is I've got the Kings trading the number 2 pick, Iman Shumpert as salary filler, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Buddy Hield for Kawhi Leonard. The Kings have stated they want to get an established star, and they definitely get one with this trade. The Spurs do what the Spurs do and grab the best international player in this draft. They get a 3-point sniper on this trade, and they get a big with plenty of untapped potential, setting them up for their next run without giving up on their present run. So it's kind of the most Spurs thing you can do, is somehow both set yourself up to be good now and be good going forward. Particularly when you're going to start putting Luka Doncic with Dante Murray. You still have, Danny Green there, although he could opt out, which Buddy Hield can replace. Again, Danny Green hasn't necessarily been Danny Green the last couple of years anyways. Willie Cauley-Stein gives them a big to build around, and they still kept their pick for later in the draft, something Garpax didn't do when they made their trade last year. Still a little bitter about that. So like I said, that's my first trade. Number 3, I still have being the Atlanta Hawks. I don't have them moving on at all. I have them taking Marvin Bagley III. In this mock draft, the Hawks stand still and draft a potential franchise center. Again, that's something they're looking to add. They're basically rebuilding from scratch. They have one guy to build around, and with 3 first-round picks in this draft, and not any real assets to build around, they can stay put, and load up on pieces. They don't necessarily need to be trading back, and I don't think they will. Number 4, though, I have another trade. I have the Chicago Bulls trading up from 7 to draft Mo Bamba. They're going to, they're making the trade up to get the most tantalizing physical specimen in this draft, and a center that they think will fit well next to Lauri Markkanen, who is looking yoked, by the way. If anybody saw the pictures out today, he is yoked. But to make this trade work, like I said, had to run it through the trade machine, has to be salary compliant. The Bulls send number 7 and Robin Lopez to the Grizzlies for number 4 and Chandler Parsons. Now, there's 2 things that could be done here. So if they were wanting to do it on draft night, that is the configuration it would have to look like. And then the Grizzlies would most likely look to move Robin Lopez just because, again, they're trying to save some money but they do save a ton of money in this deal nonetheless. But if they also waited to the beginning of the new league year, then the Bulls would have more space and might be able to do it without Robin Lopez. The downside to trade machine trades right now is you don't necessarily get that opportunity to see what the next year looks like. But if not, they also get some insurance against Marc Gasol injuries, a third big, guy who could be a third big for him. And the Bulls get to add an impact center, and they get to take a gamble on Parsons, who, if he's healthy, greatly improves their wing situation. When he's healthy, he's a much better player than anybody they got on the wing, and pretty much anybody they could draft in this draft on the wing this early. So he would give them kind of the opportunity. And even if they got to take out 2 years bad salary, that's kind of what you do during a rebuild to get the chance to move up and take somebody with the upside that Mo Bamba has, with all the work he's been doing in terms of working on developing a three-point shot, working on just kind of making sure he fits the modern NBA. At number 5, I have the Dallas Mavericks staying put, mainly because Jaren Jackson Jr. falls to him. And then in this case, they have to settle for their backup option of Jaren Jackson. They would have preferred, I think everybody at this point basically figures they prefer Mo Bamba. Jaren Jackson is the fourth of the four big guys. Those are your 4 premier centers in this draft. And I think if you have to settle for Jaren Jackson, I think even though he's going to give them an interesting, and I put it in air quotes, big trio when you add him to Harrison Barnes and Dirk Nowitzki, I think he's a long-term piece that fits both. I'm going to fit very well next to Dennis Smith Jr. without, compromising anything. And again, I don't think they're the way this draft board shakes out, there's no reason for him to jump up and get anybody. So I had them stay put. At number 6, I have another trade. Now I have the Cleveland Cavaliers moving up to draft Michael Porter Jr. So basically, they're moving up 2 spots. And in this case, it was basically the Cavs trading the number 8 pick and Cedi Osman to the Magic to move up and draft Michael Porter Jr., who gives them a secondary scorer if LeBron stays, and also a potential franchise player if/when LeBron leaves for them to start the rebuild round. Because even if LeBron stays, he's not going to be there 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now. So this gives them a chance to grab that franchise guy now, let him learn if LeBron stays, or start that rebuild with a franchise guy now. So at number 7, now we have the Grizzlies, who traded back, have a giant hole at their wing. So they take Mikal Bridges. They've traded Parsons. They didn't really have anybody besides that. And I would say he's the player most ready to contribute right out of the gate in this draft. So you compare him with Marc Gasol and Mike Conley to try and make another run at the 7 or 8 seed in the West, which is what their owner seems intent to do. So I think that's just the perfect pick for them. Now we have the Orlando Magic, who went from 6 to 8. They're going to take Trae Young, who is exactly who they would have taken at number 6. So they get to trade back, pick up Cedi Osman at the wing, which they have giant, almost no talent at. I mean, their roster is pretty clean. And they still get the playmaker and shooter they were targeting at 6 at number 8 with Trae Young. So anytime you can add an extra piece and trade back, I think that's a successful maneuver. Now I have the Clippers are moving up from number 12 and from number 12s to number 9. And it basically, this was a straight pick swap. 12 and 13 went to the Knicks. The Clippers get number 9. They take Wendell Carter. They're basically just assuming right off the bat this year that DeAndre Jordan is moving on. So that they're very likely to look at a center. And this, I'm having them trade their 2 kind of back of the lottery to jump up a little bit and make sure that they get the center that they like and that they're happy with and comfortable with. The Knicks, who have seen Michael Porter Jr. and Mikal Bridges come off the board, get to move back to 12 and 13, get a couple pieces, with Porzingis likely out this year. It's a chance for them to grab a couple more assets, pair with Ntilikina, and just kind of keep adding young pieces to their rebuild. Again, now at number 10, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. I have them staying put, although, again, there are so many things they could do. But I'm just saying that basically with all the organizational turmoil they have going, since, with Burnergate, and now you have Brett Brown running the draft, they just aren't going to be in a position to maybe make as many moves as people think they can, even though they have a ton of assets. I have them taking Zaire Smith out of Texas Tech. Their biggest need still, even if J.J. Redick comes back, is more shooting. You have a lack of it. You don't know what you have in Markelle Fultz out of last year. You got to wait and see how he rebounds. See if his shot gets put back together. You're not sure if J.J. Redick coming back. If he does, though, then this gives you a guy who can come off the bench and spell J.J. Redick and Robert Covington as a 3-and-D player off the bench. But if not, he can step right in for J.J. Redick and be that piece that helps. We still got to see Ben Simmons can put up and start to improve his shooting. If not, you have to surround him with shooters. It's just the reality of the situation. So we're already moving on from number 10 to number 11. I'm going to take another sip of some delicious ice-cold Bud Light Lime. And now here I have the Atlanta Hawks trading up from number 19 to number 11. I have the Hornets trading back to grab a couple pieces. So the Hawks give up number 19 and number 30 to move up to number 11. And they're going to take Colin Sexton, the point guard out of Alabama. Basically, the Hawks have been looking for a point guard since forever. I know they have Dennis Schroeder, but Schroeder doesn't want to be there for a elongated rebuild. Again, I think he's somebody that they'll move at some time in the not too distant future to get them some more pieces. And now that you get a chance to move up and grab Colin Sexton, probably the second best point guard prospect in this draft, now you're going to have some serious pieces to build around with him and Marvin Bagley and John Collins, who they grabbed last year. And again, when you move Dennis Schroeder, because that's going to happen, then you're going to be able to add some more assets, whether that's picks or young pieces is yet to be seen. But I think that's going to be the direction that they go, and I think that'd be a huge draft day win for them. And then we have the Knicks now with their first of their back-to-back picks. I have them taking Miles Bridges at number 12. Again, they got these by trading the ninth pick to the Clippers. And now they get to add a wing who has a lot of offensive upside, a ton of athleticism, and a ton of untapped potential. Again, I think Miles Bridges is going to be a guy who's going to really thrive outside of that more restrictive MSU offensive system. So I think that's just a chance to add somebody, who again can shoot from the outside, who can create his own shot. And when you have Ntilikina and Porzingis, you already have a point guard, combo guard in Ntilikina. You already have a pretty solid big Porzingis. So I think you can add somebody like Miles Bridges, who can play the three very solidly. Number 12, and then at number 13, I have him taking kind of one of my favorite upside picks, and kind of right around where he's expected to go. I have him taking Kevin Knox, the small forward, power forward out of Kentucky. So they get a guy again who's kind of a wing, possible stretch forward, depending on the way you want to run your lineup out there. And he's definitely, for me, the guy who has, and now that Miles Bridges is off the board, is the guy now with the highest upside left at this point. And again, just another versatile piece for their lineup. So, when they're fully healthy right now, you could be looking at a starting five of Ntilikina, Hardaway Jr., Miles Bridges, Kevin Knox, Kristaps Porzingis. That's a pretty solid lineup to be able to switch defensively and move some things around. And again, they're still not done rebuilding, but that lineup gets them into the playoffs in the East. So if all it does is take you trading back from 9 once, Mikal Bridges and Michael Porter Jr. off the board, I think that's a no-brainer for them. The Denver Nuggets at 14, I have them staying put. I have them taking Lonnie Walker, the fourth, the shooting guard out of Miami. So this stays very much the same as my regular mock draft, where they're going to add a 3-and-D wing in hopes that this is the final piece to get them into the playoffs after just missing as the 9 seed basically both of the last 2 years in the West. Do I think it gets them there? Probably not. I think there are going to be other teams from the West that easily leapfrog them. But that stays the same. And now we're at the midway point, already at about 17 minutes, so we're not going to go probably much past a half hour, if not even a little less, because I'm going to some of these later picks, not much trading at the very back end of this first round, just because there's so many guys, in my opinion, from, say, 15 to 40 that are very similar ranked. So people who have early seconds aren't going to necessarily trade up into the end of the first round, or teams that are looking to acquire a player probably won't trade into the end of the first round, but might try to trade into the early part of the second round to get one of those players. And like I said, I have the Wizards staying put again because they just really don't have any assets to trade. And like I said, starting here through probably 40, there's not like a big separation between a lot of these guys. I have the Wizards taking exactly who I had in the the original mock draft I did, which is Mitchell Robinson, the center that was supposed to play at Western Kentucky and has a lot of question marks. But I think he just offers so much upside and, again, doesn't need to score to be effective. And I think that's something the Wizards, will fit well with the Wizards when you already have John Wall, Bradley Beal, Otto Porter needing touches. So I think he's just a perfect fit and a perfect upside play and a guy who can fortify the back end of their defense with solid rim protection that they need. Number 16, Suns stay put. I have them remaining wildly incompetent. And they're going to take D'Anthony, again, not looking to make a lot of trades. They're just looking to add pieces. So I have them taking D'Anthony Melton, get a combo guard and hoping that he used his season off, thanks to NCAA suspension, to improve both his playmaking and outside shooting. Like I said, not a lot of differentiation here, but I think sometimes when you're starting to get towards the middle back end of the first round, you're looking for rotation pieces. I think for the Suns, he's not necessarily going to be a guy you can run out as a starting shooting guard, but he could be a backup point guard. He wouldn't be a starting point guard, but backup point guard, backup behind Devin Booker at the 2. I think he'd be a piece that could fit. Now the Bucks are just a team that's looking primarily to take a leap forward internally, but I have them staying put here at 17 and taking Troy Brown, shooting guard, small forward out of Oregon. Again, they're trying to add some more outside shooting. That's going to be their biggest need. I think he's a guy who who has the skills to be an outside shooter. We're still to see if he can put it all together. But again, just another piece that makes them even more versatile going forward. For them, that's been the name of the game. They're basically everybody can play any position, and that's what they want to do. The Spurs at number 18 stay put and take Kevin Huerter out of the shooting guard, small forward out of Maryland, after making the big trade earlier to move up to number 2 and move on from the Kawhi Leonard era. They stay put at 18 and add a polished three-point shooter. Again, like I said earlier, with Danny Green having his player option and just his diminishing play, this gives the Spurs this opportunity to add a player who can help them plan for life after Danny Green. Now, the Charlotte Hornets here are going to get to make their first of 2 picks after trading with the Hawks. I have them taking Dante DiVincenzo. I apologize, Dante DiVincenzo, which I still keep mispronouncing, shooting guard from Villanova. So again, they got, as I put, after widely trading back and adding an extra first-round pick, they make the most Hornets pick and take a high floor, low ceiling player who at least addresses their lack of perimeter shooting. But also, when I say a high floor, low ceiling player, there's a lot of teams that are saying, he's testing really well athletically. This guy has all the intangibles. This guy was a backup in his 2 years at college. If he was really that much of a difference maker at Villanova, where they were wing heavy but not guard heavy, I think he would have started. But again, he addresses a big weakness for them, which is their lack of perimeter shooting. I think it makes too much sense. And again, it's just one of those Hornets picks that they just make. The Timberwolves stay put at 20 and take Chandler Hutchison, the small forward from Boise State. Again, any team led by Tim Thibodeau is going to be very risk adverse, so they stay put. They take a 4-year college player who addresses their lack of perimeter shooting. And in this scenario, Tibbs, again, gets the bonus of grabbing a player the Bulls are rumored to covet. Now, again, that's always tough to tell this time of year. People make all kinds of rumors and guesses and gambles, and it's not always the case. You don't always know who really wants who. So much of it's smoke screens. But I think, again, Hutchison fits exactly the kind of player that Tom Thibodeau would take, a guy who could be very good defensively, but, again, a very polished player, 4-year, and he still will play as a rookie. Man, Bud Light Lime, you are delicious. Number 21, the Pacers move up from 23 to 21, and they send the Jazz a future second-round pick. This is done in an effort to leapfrog the Bulls. They take Josh Okogie, the shooting guard, small forward from Georgia Tech. They get a 3-and-D wing that they need to add next to Victor Oladipo. Obviously, the Bulls are looking for very much the same kind of thing. So the Pacers, give one of those heavily protected second-round picks to swap up 2 spots and take a player that the Bulls might have taken from them. Not that there wouldn't have been other similar left, but at some point I had to start making some sort of trades just to make it seem fun. Because otherwise I could have started making excuses for leaving the whole second, last 10 picks alone, and that would have been boring. On the other hand, the Bulls, after trading up to 4, do stay put at number 22. After adding a big, they take Kyrie Thomas, shooting guard out of Creighton. This is a typical guard packs pick. They're going to take the low ceiling, high floor players as often as they can, particularly at the end of the first round. It's just what they do. They don't like to take big swings. They don't like to have that big miss, which they don't have a lot of, but they also don't have home runs. They have a lot of singles and a lot of doubles to the record. And this, you can see this pattern if you look over the last 10 drafts. Not many big misses, but there's not many big wins either. And it's easy to see how this team got stuck on the mediocrity treadmill before, and they're setting themselves right on this path again. Of course, the advantage you get with adding a shooter is, A, he fits what Fred Hoiberg wants to do, B, the Bulls need it, and C, this offers you a little insurance in case Zach LaVine, you decide prices himself out of reasonability. I don't see this front office saying, oh my God, that's too expensive, but that's the reality of what should be the thought process. So 23, you have the Jazz who traded back and got that extra pick. They get to take Keita Bates-Diop, the small forward, power forward out of OSU. They get that extra asset, and they get their guy that could easily replace Derek Favors, who, they're not likely to spend too much to keep in free agency. He just wasn't a very valuable piece. But like I said, this is something I think they can do and make work for them. And then I got 24. I have the Detroit Pistons trading into the first round. So they have a couple of trade exceptions that aren't too far from expiring. So I have them taking on the Myers-Leonard contract through the use of a trade exception in Reggie Bullock's, so they can acquire this first-round pick basically through saving Portland money on the luxury tax, because it's still, I don't think, going to get them under the cap. And they use it to take Jacob Evans, the shooting guard, small forward out of Cincinnati, to add some shooting for the wings, because Detroit has no shooting, and they have to add it now, if they ever want to try and be better. And they've spent so many assets that they have to add it now. They can't keep just waiting. You didn't trade. I know they've traded their whole front office and their coaching staff, but I still can't see a team that's now built around Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin waiting around for these assets to come. So the Lakers stay put at 25. So this is just a team that realistically is gearing up for free agency, so they could have easily traded this for a future asset or look to grab a draft and stash player. But the one thing they don't really have is any post players as a long-term asset. So I have them taking Moritz Wagner, the center out of Michigan, to help with that. You're talking about one of the more polished post scorers in the draft. Again, not necessarily a high ceiling guy, but again, as a guy who could easily be a center, low usage center, and if nothing else, a rotation piece going forward for them. Again, at number 26, the 76ers are staying put, but they get to add. I have them taking Bruce Brown Jr., the point guard, shooting guard out of Miami. So he doesn't necessarily fit the need to add shooting, but you get a combo guard who can really defend and really rebound. And they already added a shooter at number 10. So I feel like, again, when you're talking about a team that's really close to making a deep run, these are the kind of players and these are the kind of picks you make that push you over the hump and put you in a position to go forward. At number 27, again, as much as I have to say that I expect the Celtics to try and trade this pick just because their roster is pretty much set, I have them taking Elia Kobe, point guard from, I believe it's France. He's an international player. My guess is that they'll try to keep him overseas for a year or two. You can add this guy as insurance in case Kyrie leaves, or if you trade Terry Rozier, or if you need to, move on. At some point there will be some long-term financial considerations where you have to add some of these drafted stash players and pull them over to fill in your bench, because the financials of this roster will get pretty crazy. Golden State Warriors stay put at 28. This is a team that's going to just be looking to add bench pieces. And I have them taking Jerome Robinson, the point guard out of Boston College. Same as before, the Warriors get to add another big guard who can shoot the three and guard multiple positions. A little unfair, and it seems like exactly the perfect Warriors pick. 29, the Brooklyn Nets stay put, particularly after just making the trade to acquire Dwight Howard. Now, granted, that was done to, save money for 2019, 2020 season. So it got them rid of Timothy Mozgov, who the Hornets took on, because then it saves them salary cap money this year. And I have them taking Melvin Frazier, the wing player out of Tulane. Could easily go to one pick earlier to Gold State. Again, this is a guy who improved in every single major statistical category last year. If you can keep that up, now you're talking about a 3-and-D guy who can probably guard 1 to 4. So at the end of the first round, it's exactly what you're looking for. And then with the 30th pick of the first round, I have the Charlotte Hornets, who again made that wise trade to move back from 11 to pick up 19 and 30 with the Hawks, taking Dzanan Musa, the small forward from overseas. This is a guy who, if he adds some weight to his frame, easily has the skill set to play anywhere from 1 to 4. He would be a really great ad if they pull the trigger on a long overdue rebuild easily, because again he can take over Nicholas Batum's role. He could take over the Michael Kidd Gilchrist spot. But again, he can fit anywhere from 1 to 4 defensively, and that's what you're looking for in the modern NBA, is just a bunch of guys who can switch. And that wraps up this first round mock draft. Like I said, I don't want to make this midweek extra episode too terribly long, but I wanted to do something a little fun, little thought experiment for myself to see what kind of trades could I make that would work under the salary cap, what kind of pick swaps could I make that would kind of make sense. And again, it was kind of fun to work through that in my head and then get this out to you tonight. I'll get this out, edit it and publish it as soon as I'm done here, with the draft being tomorrow night. And then we can, like I said, pull up my 2 mock drafts, and listen to them both before or after, and be like, did any of his trades even come to fruition? Did any of the thought process at least match up with what some of the GMs were thinking? How many of my picks were right? Like I said, though, when I made my original mock, it wasn't saying this is who this team will pick. This is who I would pick if I was there and I was their GM, based on the roster and things like that. And these were just fun trades that I made that make sense for both sides. There's nothing here that that I thought was too crazy. Again, did the Kings give up a lot to get Kawhi Leonard? Yeah, but they're the Kings and they're the one team who could do that. So like I said, I'm not going to ramble on. I think we're going to call this an episode at 30. Just a little over 30 minutes. So thank you for tuning in to this special midweek edition of the Don't Worry Nobody's Listening podcast. Subscribe, rate, review. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, the CastBox app, the Satchel app, Peapod app. We're on Spotify. I put it on my YouTube page. And like I said, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, JASONBANICKI. Be more than happy to discuss some of this with you guys. Get your feedback, carry the conversation on beyond just the podcast, or feed me ideas that you'd like to hear in future podcasts from me, because I'm more than willing to shoot from the hip for this stuff. But thank you guys again, and talk to you sometime this weekend.